This time I'll call the meeting of the Marshall City Council to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. We have a full agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda?
Your Honor, members of the council, I'd like to propose, or do it at the consent, but we propose to pull 5A off of the consent for a minor change that we will explain to you under new business. It's the transfer of the Sunday liquor license from Best Western.
Okay, so you want it pulled off the consent but added
to new business.
Okay. So move 5A to the first item of new business. Any other changes to that agenda? If not, we'll operate under that agenda. The first item on the agenda would be the introduction and welcome to our new city assessor. I'll turn to City Administrator Ben Martig.
We have, thank you, we have Lorna Sandvik, our new city assessor, who's doing commercial industrial, who's been on the job here now in her, what week is it now? Second, third? Third week, all right, third week. Time flies fast. So I wanted to give an opportunity for her to stop in and meet the council. You had requested that she stop by sometime, and so, you know, put a face to the name, and maybe she can just give a quick hello to everybody. And Lorna, do you have anything you'd like to say here?
Well, I'm glad to be here, and like Ben said, I'm in my third week, and probably all know where my office is. If you ever have any questions or concerns, my door's always open, just stop in. And glad to be here.
Well, welcome, Lorna. We're very pleased that you're on staff. Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Lorna at this time? If not, then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. This is an informational item. It's a proclamation welcoming the foreign exchange students for 2008-2009. I believe we have all of them, perhaps except for one, that are in attendance this evening. This is International Education Month, and that's why you're a valued part of this community, visiting this community and being educated for the time that you're here in this community. The formality of this is we do have a resolution before us. I would entertain a motion for the resolution that would welcome the foreign exchange students for 2008 and 2009 school year. Motion by Dan, seconded by Charlie. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. Now we'll take a few minutes and individually present the proclamations to each of the young people that are here. So I'm going to come around front. And I'll ask you to come up and get your resolution as we know. First, Alina, is that correct? Alina, okay. Marie Schwartz, and you're from Austria. Why don't we just stay up here? The next would be Johannes Abraham from Switzerland. Next would be Anne Jeanette Hostel from Norway. And if I'm not saying your names correctly, please correct me. Beatrice, and you're from Germany. Ingeborg, that's right, Renati from Norway. Okay, and Lena lady?
She's not here.
She's not here, okay. And Ralph Weber. And from Germany. Join me in welcoming everyone here. Take you back to your seat. Once again, welcome and thank you and congratulations, and you're welcome to stay for as much of the meeting as you care to this evening. We'll move right along with our formal meeting. The first item of action then would be consider the approval of the minutes for the last regular city council meeting. That was held on November 3rd. And then we had a special council meeting on November 7th and another special council meeting that was held on November 12th. Now, the council does have the minutes from all three of those meetings. Are there any corrections to note at this time?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, on the back of page 1-3, under the third paragraph, under consideration to call for a public hearing, I believe Sano requested Mr. Schilling indicate that needed to be completed before a COF. It's a certificate of occupancy, not a COF.
COA.
I think. COO.
Okay, we'll note that correction. Any other corrections? If not, is there a motion to approve the minutes? So moved. Motion by Mike, seconded by Larry. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Okay, the first public hearing this evening is agenda item number 2. This will be a public hearing to consider the approval of the proposed underage drinking ordinance. To start this out and to conduct a public hearing, I'll call on Ben Martig. The procedure that we'll go through in this public hearing as well as others is that Ben will give the background information. I'll open up for any comments from the Legislative and Ordinance Committee that has been considering this. Then we'll open it up for public comment as part of the public hearing. When we do have the public comment portion, I'd invite anyone present to make comments, but at that point we will need to have you come forward and use the microphone. Okay, Ben?
Thank you, Your Honor, members of the City Council. Enclosed in your packet is a summary memo with some attachments provided with that, including a red line draft of the proposed ordinance as well as a final version of that. I will give a brief summary of the background of the ordinance as prepared and also the details of the ordinance that's for you this evening, as well as the staff recommendation to move ahead. First of all, to identify the problem that led to the ordinance, included in your packet is a memo from the Chief of Police, Rob Yant, that included an increase in the incidence of underage drinking, having alcohol-related problems with that on the on-sale licenses in town. Over the last year and a half is typically when that's been happening, where there's been some increased arrests. There are some statistics that help substantiate that. We do also have with us this evening some members of the police department that also can speak towards that as requested. Overall, our licensed establishments are properly managing the issue, and there isn't really an overall systemic problem, I guess, if you will, for the management of people who are under 21 drinking in the establishments. However, there is a problem, and our current code, in our opinion, needs to be made more restricted to deal with this ongoing problem. We are not here to identify any particular business that has been a problem, but rather find a solution that deals with current or potential problems into the future in a fair and equitable manner. Although the ordinance that we're about to summarize to you certainly will have some shortfalls, as there's an exception to every mean, we feel that ultimately it's a better ordinance than what we have in effect today. It will help us resolve some of the ongoing problems we've been dealing with related to that. To start off, the current ordinance is fairly unrestrictive in relation to allowing anyone under 21 into the bars, basically unrestricted as long as they do not have the intent to consume or try to consume alcohol, and that is illustrated in the red line version, basically how it is today. This issue was brought up with our Legislative and Ordinance Committee that has spent several meetings discussing various drafts of this, and it's gone through some substantial changes through that process. We did also receive feedback and invite members who are licensed intoxicating liquor, who are licensed through the city for intoxicating liquor. They were also invited to several of those meetings to get their feedback as well, which I believe there, a number of the suggestions were and issues raised led to the incorporation and final ordinance that was drafted for your review this evening. I would like to spend a little bit of time going through some of those provisions, and I think the easiest way to follow through would be the red line version, starting on, well, if you turn to, it's a little hard, if you turn to 2-3, I guess, we'll start with pages 1, 2, and 3 of that summary red line version. The first section relates to loitering. Currently, the city really has no loitering ordinance per se, and there has been some issues, as you've seen in the background material, with larger crowds at the end of bar closing, where we have large groups gathering, where sometimes it's hard to get people to disperse and kind of move along. And unless they are being disruptive in things, they can kind of linger on indefinitely in those situations. And so a provision was added to give the ability of the city to, that would restrict loitering to either gather, remain, or loiter in the public right-of-way, including a public parking lot adjacent to an establishment licensed under the chapter after lawful closing hour. Some of our downtown lots has been where there's been particular problems, and so we're focusing on the public right-of-way, including the parking lots, as the areas that there would be no loitering allowed. The individual would be the one who would be in violation rather than the licensee or employees of the licensee, so it's specific to those people. There was some discussion, but nothing proposed at this time about whether there should be a citywide loitering. That wasn't the issue we were focusing on with this ordinance, so we did not look at a citywide implementation of any loitering restrictions. We did keep it in the general liquor section of the city code, however. Moving along under the primary focus and changes of the ordinance would restrict under 6-215 if you follow through on page 1. And I'm not going to go through line by line, but I'll try and hit on the primary ones that's summarized in the background memo. The proposal would be to restrict those people under 21 to enter an establishment licensed for intoxicating beverage between the hours of 10 p.m. and 1 a.m., except to attend social functions that are held in a portion of the establishment where intoxicating beverage is not sold, consumed, served, or displayed. In that section, it also lays out what the separation has to be, which it has to be basically a complete physical barrier. There has to be certain signage and security provisions so that there's very good control over about how liquor cannot go into those particular areas. Part of the purpose of that is that some establishments could be set up in a certain way to allow non-drinking areas to be utilized for social functions. So if you had a dance area for non-alcoholic people under 21, they could be in there without being in the area where the liquor is involved. Along with that, though, the provisions of this section would only apply to those licensed establishments that receive greater than 30% of gross annual revenues that would have intoxicating beverage revenues greater than 30% of the gross annual revenues, as verified by various taxing reports that we would receive from the city clerk's office. In order to qualify for this exemption, they'd have to provide documentation. So if a business didn't want to qualify for the exception to not allow 21s, they basically don't have to provide anything. But if they would like to have that exception, they'd have to provide proof that they are eligible for that exception, not to be included for these restrictions. The purpose of that was to try and identify, and this came through feedback from the committee, is that kind of the one-size-fits-all concept, so we're trying to focus on those establishments that are primarily more of a nightclub, alcohol-related as a primary revenue source within that. And so so that provision was put in there. We did take a look at several other different ordinances from similar sizes communities throughout Minnesota, and this was one of the way to approach it was through that. Some of them had tiered levels where there was different restrictions at different levels, and we tried to avoid getting it too complicated by having the different levels of gross revenues related to liquor to have restrictions. Along with that, there are certain other exceptions. We specifically relate that gross revenue to include food and gaming income. We do exclude lodging, which was another piece we did receive feedback on from the public concern that the way that it was written originally, there was maybe allowed the interpretation where some of our hotels that might have a bar in them would have much larger revenues and kind of skew the reality of how much actual liquor is being used for their total revenues. With this as well, an issue raised was what about new licenses where we don't have any historical records? So what we would do is if they apply and suggest that our type of business would not meet that, they basically indicate that at the beginning, and then we would track after 3 months and then 6 months where the actual sales records are to verify that. And if they exceeded the 30% threshold, then the other provisions would kick in at that point. There are some exceptions as well to the ordinance that would allow people who are working in the establishment who are under 21, but if they're 18, 19, or 20, they can continue to work. For example, Minnesota law allows you to serve alcohol as like a server if you are under 21 but over the age of 18. That would still allow that. There would also be an exception specifically for private parties, and our focus there was on the example of like a wedding dance. That would be an exception to our ordinance provisions, where if they're having a private party where it is not open to the public and the attendance is listed to a specific identifiable group, invited by a specific host, that would be an exception where there could be people under 21 after the hours of 10 and 1 a.m., or between the hours of 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. We are asking that during the license period that they keep track of those, keep track of the actual records of those people, and then their specific information we'd like. And in presenting that, we felt that it was reasonable amount of information we're asking them to keep, and then at the end of the licensing year, they can dispose of it if they want to, but they don't have to keep it indefinitely. And that's just for if there's issues that come up or problems in an investigation, that there would be records for us to go back and research. One other item to make a comment on is including the licensee would ultimately be held accountable to the provisions of the sections. Penalty could include loss of the license, and it leaves somewhat subjective for the council in the future to make decisions about how to handle any kind of penalties related to that. I did include the minutes in your packet as well that summarized some of the discussions we had. The last meeting that we have not had a chance to review and approve, so those were not included in your packet. One item I would like to make a recommendation, first of all, staff is recommending to go forward and approve this ordinance. We are comfortable with the approval coming this evening. However, based on other information you've received during the public hearing, I did provide alternative options or considerations for the council that they could table it, discussion to a future meeting if they would like additional research done. They could also choose to pass a motion for denial to deny the proposed ordinance, and also a failure to pass a majority in favor of the vote would leave the ordinance written as is. A couple items, we do include a clean copy of a proposed ordinance that would not be the red line version. However, I'm recommending, along with the ordinance, 2 changes to that. The first one is that we have a date error on it. Originally, we were going to be coming earlier, so we had the 3rd day of November listed on the ordinance. And if you were to consider that this evening, it would be the 17th of November. In addition to that, in section 4, which is the same section that has the date, it is written to be effective after its adoption and publication. We would recommend that that be amended to be effective January 1st, 2009 to coincide with the new permitting that would go into effect for the upcoming year. That should give us enough time to let this sink in, get the procedures clarified, as well as any documentation as well with the reports before the first of the year with that, when this would go into effect. With that, there are several different people who are here this evening that could provide additional staff comment related to it. I'll give them the opportunity, or if the council should have any questions for myself or these individuals, open it up, as well as we do have committee members that sat in and reviewed this. First of all, the city attorney, Simpson, I'll give him the opportunity to comment at all if anything was missed or highlights that he would like to point out. We do have the police chief, Robbie Ant, here this evening to maybe make any comments in relation to the operational or ordinance provisions, as well as a few of the people of the police department. I'll leave it at his discretion as to whether they're here to respond or whether they're here to present, as well as the committee members. That concludes my summary, and I would be willing to turn it over to staff if they would have anything additionally to comment on.
No, I don't have anything else. I thought Ben's written summary was adequate. This presentation is fine. Basically, it came about wristbands, identifying those underage and those overage with different colored wristbands was ineffective and was not working. The call came to, let's do something else. And so this is the result of what 3 or 4 legislative and ordinance meetings, I believe. That's all.
Okay. Rob, do you have any comments to make at this time?
No, I think beyond just understanding, and again, it's sometimes difficult when you don't see it, but to understand that it's been an issue and it amplified more where we had a lot of the secondary problems. We're having people from out of town coming, we pick them up on other violations, and just seemed that it was something that needed to be addressed more, and that's part of why I asked our sergeants to be here, to patrol sergeants, so they work the nights and experience that more. Where you see that, also our investigative sergeants and chiefs have dealt with a number of the secondary consequences in terms of follow-through investigations for vehicle thefts, sexual assaults, and some shoplifting that was part of it. So didn't know how much or how little you want, but they're available as a resource if you have questions.
One other item to comment on, we did meet our publication requirements, posting the public hearing, as well as sent out in advance last Friday in the regular mail to all the licensed people, just as they've been notified during a couple of our other meetings or discussions. They were also emailed a copy of the hearing date and the ordinance as well.
Any comments from the Legislative and Ordinance Committee as part of this public hearing?
Yeah, we did have 4 meetings. I can't remember the last time we've had 4 meetings on a particular ordinance, but it's been refined, and I think it's in a substance now that the liquor holders feel that they can live with it, the police can live with it, and the city can live with it. So I would recommend that we go forward.
Okay, open up for public comment as part of the public hearing on this proposed ordinance. Anyone here wishing to speak to this as part of the public hearing? No, is there any other?
I got a question.
Dan?
On 6218, what is the penalty referred to in 633? 6218, talk about loss of license.
That's an existing.
Okay, is it similar to the tobacco one or not?
No, we've recently redone that where the first violation is subject to a closure for 24 hours or something.
Is that how long it is?
I'm not recalling either, but subject to closure and penalty. So violation of this would fall in line with the existing.
This one would just be would be misdemeanor charges that could be filed against the licensee or employees of the premises. We do not have any specific, similar to the tobacco, we don't have any fines that are included within this ordinance. Basically, the threat would be criminal charges of misdemeanor or loss of the, that could include loss of the license.
Yeah, and I think first violation, no loss, but second or third, that was recently done within a couple of years. Right.
Okay.
May I? speak to
Yes.
that?
Chris?
I'm Chris Shover from Marshall, and since you brought that up, I did print that out because I had concern about that myself. In that statute, it just states that the council can suspend up to 60 days and up to a $2,000 fine. That's the broad one. And then I know several years ago when there were some problems with some of the licensees getting busted for stings, there were a lot of incidents before anything happened. So it was revised to have that in there. However, when I'm reading that, that doesn't cover what we're talking about here. So I was concerned because I didn't know what would happen or what would be the consequence if somebody does get, you know, if there's a fine or what would happen in that case. Would you like to?
Dennis, you want to?
might want to give that to Dennis.
Yeah. Thanks for doing the work. Thanks. Well, I think now this one gets added to this existing list. So there'd be, probably have to have a new subdivision here where we would add that. And again, it's a misdemeanor fine, which is up to 90 days and $1,000. But it's again up to the council. And then the violations where we added at the previous time, that's a violation of sting. First violation, $200 penalty. Second is a penalty, and then third or more is a fine plus a 48-hour suspension. But that doesn't apply to this. Thank you.
Other questions or input as part of the public hearing?
Move to close the public hearing.
Motion by Charlie to close the public hearing. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Mike. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion passes. I'll now entertain a motion to take action on the proposed ordinance.
Move the ordinance with that change, it becomes effective 1/1/09, section 4.
Motion by Mike. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Charlie. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Okay. Agenda item number 3 is a public hearing. This is a public hearing on the transfer of an on-sale intoxicating liquor license for the Best Western. Conduct a public hearing. I'll call on City Clerk Tom Middlebrook.
Mayor and council members, the city was in receipt of an application for the transfer of a liquor license from MT Business Center, LLC, doing business as Best Western Marshall Inn, to Bingle, LLC, doing business as Best Western Marshall Inn. The sales transaction on this transfer is to take place on December 1st. The taxes have all been paid current, which includes the real estate taxes or lodging tax. So everything is basically in order for the transfer on this license. So we're recommending that this move forward with the transfer contingent upon us receiving verification that the sales transaction has taken place.
Okay. Open up for any questions, comments on this hearing? Mike?
That was under the understanding, has it been operated continuously by MT Business Center to date?
I think it would be today's November. Kelly Inn took over the receivership of that because the operation was turned back to the bank. So Kelly Inn has been working in the receivership to work through this process of getting a new owner at the operation.
Just as a management company.
Right.
So that was just a management contract. I mean, there shouldn't have been a transfer that occurred at the time of the bank. Because in essence, they became the new owner.
Not until it closes.
Well, on effective October 20th, that's my understanding, that was the date when there was a deed in lieu of foreclosure from the prior ownership back to the local bank. Prior to that transaction concluding, there was a management firm hired, so they have been operating under the existing license and have been, kind of been a handshake deal that they've been upfront and said, we're in here only as a management group. Can we continue to operate under the existing license? Because they really weren't in a position to have that license transferred to them. They weren't assuming any ownership. Under our ordinance, you can look at it as either a 30-day or a 90-day time period within which to transfer that. We gave them the benefit of the doubt, basically up to 90 days, to allow a new owner to be found. And that new owner has now stepped forward and said, if everything goes right, December 1 will be the new owner, so can we have everything in place for that to occur? So basically, it's been since October 20th and hopefully up until December 1, it's kind of been a period of limbo between the prior ownership and the new ownership. And so that's where that one's at, and I believe that's also why we've pulled 5A off the consent, just to have that same contingency provisions. If it closes, then we're in a position to transfer or grant a new license.
Okay. Other questions or input as part of the public hearing? Is there anyone here this evening that wishes to speak to this? Is there a motion to close the public hearing? So moved. Motion by Mike, seconded by Dan. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion passes. I'll now entertain a motion that would allow the transfer of the on-sale intoxicating liquor license for the Best Western.
Second.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Charlie. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you, Tom. Agenda item number 3 is a public hearing on a request to move a dwelling into a residential district, location 602 Heritage Place. Glenn Olson, Director of Public Works, City Engineer, will conduct this public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We tried to give you in your packet an update of the status of the subdivision of what was happening. So if you, we'll kind of go through this specific request for move. Kim Christensen is here tonight. He's the applicant, owner of this current structure. It's been inspected and found to be in reasonable conformance with our building code and able to be moved to another spot within the city limits. So there's two things, a couple of things we're concerned about. Number one, you can see that there. You can see that in this layout, this is the subdivision, and all lots that have buildings moved on them have the C of O's listed, issued. All of them. This is the one that was recently approved, that's under construction, and I believe just moved onto the foundation this weekend or today. Today. So this is the one under construction. And the request from Mr. Christensen had been to move this house onto 602, this lot in the cul-de-sac. We do know that it didn't have a foundation. And in the discussions with the applicant, he was concerned about that as well, because we had some discussions about who's going to be liable for it, sitting there, fencing it, keeping it safe over the winter, blowing off its tentative foundations. And the applicant came back and said, I'm going to revise the request. I'd like to move it out of town for the winter and move it back in after a foundation is placed. So that is the request for the move, is to move it from his location. It's got an interim spot outside the city limits and then would be placed on 602 after a foundation is in place. So in the discussion at this public hearing, we believe that's a good suggestion, and our recommendation would be in number 2 under the public hearing section, complete all on-site construction required revisions to the dwelling in conformance with the city code and obtain a C of O within 180 days of, instead of approval, but moving the dwelling to the site. So the applicant will have to make another request for a moving permit when he wants to move it from its temporary site out of the city to this site, so that we're aware of that move. But this would constitute the approval of this home being moved to that lot under those provisions. So it would not be there until there was a foundation for it to be moved to. Kim is here tonight. Any comments? Maybe a little background of why you want to move?
Well, I'm just trying to get my lot kind of in order before winter, and I was working with Ron, as everyone knows, last week, and the time has gone along a little further. Ron's subcontractor is a little hesitant on trying to start a foundation because there's extra costs. So as a result, we kind of compromised, and so we move it out of the city limits, then we move back in later. And I understand the safety issues too, we don't want any problems up there either. What it does for me, it'll let me clean up my lot this fall yet, hopefully, if I can get it moved out of there. With the foundation filled in, septic and all that good stuff. So that I'm pretty well set and good for going into winter.
Thank you, Kim. Any
questions?
Any questions for Mr. Christensen?
I guess got a question, I mean, for Glenn more than Mr. Christensen, if I could ask him. That, why are we considering the move to this lot if it's not moving to this lot? And if we have to readdress this issue at another time to move it to that lot, why is this lot even a part of the issue here now?
It's a good question. Originally, it was to be moved to this lot. We had those issues, and there's 2 separate permit applications that the applicant has to go through. One is the building itself, the compliance with code, the approvals by our staff to say, yes, it's eligible to be moved within the city limits to another lot in the city limits, because some of our moves can't be moved into the city limits. So that's number 1. And secondary, there's an actual moving application that moves the house on city streets. So 2 separate applications, and they want to know specifically if this house, and that's what this hearing is about, if it fits the neighborhood and the council approves it to be moved under certain conditions. Our main issue with this move was it may have sat there, not tied down, not on a foundation for several months. So in order to accommodate the moving from the lot to get that one cleaned up, knowing that it has a home ultimately, and would take another permit to get it here, that's really a discussion the council needs to have with the applicant.
Now, at the previous meeting when this house was discussed, I believe one of the items of discussion was the status of other properties in that neighborhood. Now, the question would be not only the status currently, but also the status on the reapplication for the moving permit. Should this be approved, they'll have to reapply, and then at the start of that 180 days, what type of decision analysis is done at that time?
The only thing would be the moving permit for the street portion. Dale was here tonight, we talked about that. And yes, if there was damages to the unit, that would comply under the building permit section. Let's say there was damages to the plate or something like that during the moving. But we could take care of that under the building permit side.
Okay.
This is just what I consider to be a review of the structure, the fit in the neighborhood, whether or not we're going to allow them to do it. And I think you'll see, I had Dale put together a summary of every individual, the status of every individual location too. And in that summary, you saw all of them have CFOs except one. And that's the one that was just moved in today.
Any questions for the applicant from the council? Comments from the council?
I'll just make a comment. Kim came to me last week from the post office. I said, what can I do? I said, you can do two things. Make a commitment, you're gonna have the foundation and the house done now, or try to find a different area to go with it. Because I know Dale's conversation before is a concern of a blocked up house on unstable ground for a time period like that. And I think that's what Kim's brought forward. I think it's the best case scenario.
The only question I have is, I believe this is the best thing. He can get on doing what he wants to do, he moves it, and that would be one of the suggestions I would have brought tonight, was be to move it to a place other than an R2 lot, or R1 lot, I mean, in Marshall. My question is by approving this tonight, do we guarantee that this council has accepted that house to be put at 602?
That's what we're recommending, that it is approved to go to 602 and 602 only at this time. That's what he is applying for.
With the
We
time.
just have an interim location until there's a permanent foundation waiting for it.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike, you got it.
Yes, I guess my question is, who owns the house between now and next spring? Is it still in your name, or is it in the name of Ron Schilling? And if it's in Ron's name, the wrong person filled out the application.
Well, I own it right now,
Okay.
and I'm trying to, I know it's a huge price that I'm getting for this, my house. But I guess I'd just as soon not get into what I found when I actually did the track record on all those occupancy permits. Then I'm not gonna go there, Charlie, because that would be just not a good thing for either one of us. So what I'd like to do is facilitate getting it off my lot so I can go about my business, I'm not causing any issues, I'm moving out of town. It's still gonna go back to 602. And at some point in time when Ron pays me, then I will not own the house anymore.
And the owner does have to apply for the permit. And if, in fact, someone else owns it when it's out on the interim lot, that person would have to come in for the moving permit, but we issue those in our office. It's just the route and approvals by all the utility companies and other roadway jurisdictions. So it's really just being able to physically move it on the public right-of-way. That's what that permit was for.
Okay, as part of it, oh, Mike, you have
Well,
another
yes,
comment?
I guess a follow-up question, I guess, I understand what the ultimate outcome that is intended, but I guess I go back to legally, Dennis, can someone other than the owner of the property ask to have it moved?
I thought Glenn had already answered that.
Well, I'm not sure.
It's either,
Answer it again.
We have to have the application from the owner. You can't ask to move my house, okay? I wouldn't give you approval for that. So the owner of the property has to apply to move. Now, if Ron owned it today, he would be the applicant. If he bought it on his property and it's his house sitting on that lot, he would be the responsible party to us.
which is why Mr. Christensen is here tonight. He is the owner of the house, and he is asking permission of this council to move it.
Yeah.
And his request is to move it to a location outside the city.
interim, but this application is to move it to 602 Heritage Place. So
So-
that's why the
so the
council
next
has to be
move-
involved.
So the next move, when it gets moved this spring, back to 602 Heritage, you can issue a permit for that without coming before the council.
That's right, as long as you've
So
approved the
if we
move to
approve it
602.
tonight, we're saying it's going to go there.
Yes. That's the only place it can go if it moves into the city at this time, without a new application coming back in front of council.
And Charlie, Dale's team already inspected the house, everything's fine, and it can be moved there. Is that true, Dale?
Building has been seen.
Okay, I'll open it up for input from anyone who wishes to speak, and at this point, I'd ask you to come up, use the microphone, and give your name and your property address.
My name is Deb Pitt, and I live at 612 Susie Drive. I missed the last few council meetings regarding Heritage Place, but my thing is, why, if it's been denied twice, why would you, as a council, allow it to go in now or in the spring? I do understand that Ron was giving, looking at the notes, a list of cosmetic things that he had to do. Is there any way of getting a list of that? Have those been completed? If you haven't been around the area, you'll see I did put up a big privacy fence recently, but I still don't feel as a homeowner that I want my backyard or, you know, behind my property looking like it does. I still feel there's roofing shingles that need to be done, painting that needs to be done. I did talk to one of the neighbors, and they painted their own home, which is fine, you know, that's great, even though Ron does own it, but at least they got it done. That's my thing right now, is why would you approve to move that house to 602 Heritage Place in the spring? I mean, what's going to change between now and then? You know, are there other things Ron needs to do and complete before anything else can be moved in there? That's all I have, thank you.
Okay.
Well, the answer to that, of course, is that the COO has been issued, and that's what held up the last 2 meetings, is that COOs had not been issued.
Okay.
I think at this point, just from what Mr. Christensen had said, that we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. Ron owns the property, Mr. Christensen owns the house, yet he wants a permit to move it from 1400 North Highway 59 to some other place, and then move it on a property that he doesn't even own. So you've got one person that owns the property, you've got one person that owns the house. When do these come together, and why isn't one person, like we had said, somebody's applying for the permit for the house, somebody else owns the property? If this is approved tonight, it's pretty much cut and dried. There is no question about whether this is or isn't. And Mr. Christensen said, well, at some point in time that he would sell the house to Mr. Schmidt. The last council meeting, I have on a disc here, I wasn't able to make it here. By Mr. Christensen's own admission at that council meeting, he said that he wanted to move this house because in a year, 2 or 3, he wanted to do some improvements to his property if economics provided and stuff like that. So why the big rush to move this all of a sudden? Mr. Schilling, by his own admission, didn't have time nor the resources to do any work to this house when it got moved, because now he's focusing on the one that went to 612 Heritage. So if you approve it tonight, he moves the house. Mr. Schilling has to get a permit to dig a basement at that time then, Glenn, is that right? So he has to get permission. It's Mr. Christensen's house. Mr. Schilling has to get a permit to dig a basement. Then Mr. Christensen has to have a permit to move it to town.
No, he'd probably sell it this winter, so Mr.
Schilling would apply then for the permit to move it to town. So by approving one, we've wiped out the whole thing. We have no say come spring if the one at 612 is done or isn't done. that this other one is just automatically moved on to this property. Again, I think there's issues about the 180-day occupancy. This other one was moved on property today onto the foundation at 612 Heritage, so now the 180 days starts for that. So that takes us through December, January, February, March, April to May to make sure that that one is completed, as well as any other, the grass and the seeding issues, that type of thing. If there be cement, not foundations, driveways, sidewalks, sidewalks are done, any of that type of thing for the house that's already there. I really think that Mr. Schilling should have been here to coincide this whole thing, if that's what's actually happening on his behalf or when he purchases the house. But like I said, with Mr. Christensen's own admission, he's not in a hurry to do anything to his property, so why are we, doing all of this? Like I said, I believe we're putting the cart before the horse.
Anyone else here to speak? Kim, then I'll have you come up and use the mic.
Okay. I'm not loud now?
You need to use the mic.
I'm pretty loud.
This
They
way.
want you on camera.
This mic or that one?
That one.
This one? Well, first of all, a couple things have happened in the last week. I had some property in South Dakota. I was able to sell that property to some of the wind developers. And as a result, I got motivated to kind of move this a little quicker, which kind of promoted trying to come up with a compromise. And, I'll be honest with you, I chased down the occupancy permits, and I was pretty disappointed. And Glenn knows why. But that's neither here nor there. So, and I'm not going to stick up for Ron. Ron's Ron, I'm Kim, okay? So what I'm trying to do is, because of what happened, I just sold this other property. I need the space now for some temporary storage, and I'd like to get it handled as quickly as possible. And this all happened just in the last week, which kind of promoted trying to get this pushed along a little more. So, if anyone has any other questions.
Okay, thank you, Kim.
Okay.
Any other input that the council has at this time? I would entertain a motion to close this public hearing. So moved. Second. Motion by Mike, second by Larry. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion passes. So you have the request before you to move the dwelling to 602 Heritage Place with whatever restrictions the council would want to place on that, and with the understanding what was presented in the public hearing about the temporary location.
I would move to recommend the motion approving the request subject to the conditions listed in our packet tonight.
Is there a second to that motion? Second. Motion by Larry, seconded by Mike. Discussion?
Glenn, will you state the change on the action recommended under number 2, how that changes that within the 180-day approval? How did that change again?
Change the word approval to moving the dwelling to the site.
I'll second that for discussion.
Well, it already has been
Okay,
seconded.
okay, then I have a question.
Yes, Mike?
How about saying that somewhere in there that can't be done until after 6/12, certificate of occupancy has been issued? The one that got moved in today.
Is that a part of your motion, or?
I'm okay with that, amending it to include occupancy of 6/12.
A certificate of occupancy would be issued for 612 Heritage Place prior to the moving permit being issued. Okay. And that's according to your second. Any other discussion on that motion? Now I'll call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. on into the consent agenda. A number of items on the consent agenda. First, 5A is moved to the first item of new business. Also on the consent agenda, consider the advertising for bids for pickup of garbage at various city locations. Next would be consider the approval of Minnesota lawful gambling application exempt permit. We have consideration of a temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license for Prairie Home Hospice. Also consider the approval of temporary on-sale liquor license for SMSU for December 5th, 2008 and February 2nd, 2009. Next, we have the consideration of the approval for declaring of excess property and approving the disposal to the Department of Corrections for the Bikes to Kids program and/or the Marshall Schools for a positive rewards program. Next would be consider the amendment to the cooperation agreement with Public Housing Commission, and finally are the bills and the project payments. And also on the consent agenda are the building permits that have been previously approved by city staff. Is there any item on the consent agenda any member of the council wants to remove for purposes of separate discussion? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Charlie. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. Agenda item 5A, consider the approval of the Sunday liquor license for the Best Western Marshall Inn. Ben and/or Dennis?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It seems appropriate that we should have the issuance of this Sunday liquor license contingent upon verification of the closing of the transaction, which was not one of the recommendations. So this would be our recommendation that we approve it subject to the same conditions that we approved the prior transfer license.
Questions on this? Is there a motion to that effect? So moved. Second. Motion by Mike, seconded by Larry, to approve the issuance of the Sunday liquor license for the Best Western Marshall Inn, contingent on all the recommendations of city staff, including that the property sale transaction has closed. Discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. Agenda item number 6 is a information item. This is a presentation of the community web portal, and doing this presentation will be our Economic Development Authority Director, Mark Hansen. Mark?
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. As you stated, today I'm going to make a presentation on the community web portal. Give you a little bit of background. Essentially, this portal is going to be used as an economic development and community development tool. Essentially to use, first of all, to expose our community to potential residents, potential businesses, also to be a good tool for our current residents. This is a portal which really has very little internal data, but has a lot of external links, external trafficking to other information. There is some internal information that is a couple new pieces. First of all, a community walk piece, which is exposure to all that is the city of Marshall for shopping and for government entities, for organizations, etc. And also we're going to do a citywide calendar, which is utilizing information from the school, from community services, from the college, from organizations, etc. So what I'll do tonight is kind of give you a really basic walkthrough of the portal. I'm not going to go into a lot of great details. I could be here, half hour, 45 minutes, but I'll go through some basic pieces and then open up for questions. First of all, the top piece of the portal, as you can see, is Discover Marshall. That's the new logo that's been established that we've used for the downtown signs. We've also used it on the downtown banners. There's a top schematic here. These are called window shades, and these will essentially be the daily information that a current resident would like to see. School lunches, pop that down. This is the school lunches for the week. Weather, what's the weather for today? Open this up, it tells you what's going to go on there. Today's events, this is going to be imported from the community calendar, so if you want to know what's going on today, we have wrestling, hockey, gymnastics, and basketball. That is our actual events for today. Local news, these are a feed that comes from our newspaper. So articles that are in our newspaper today. Click on one of those about Midwest Aviation. What it'll do is it'll take you directly to that article so you can read that article immediately. Close that piece there. Parent portal. Parent portal is the #1 part of the school district's website that's being used. I think 48% of the enrollment that uses the portal every single day. Doesn't mean that every person uses it every day, but on average 48% of the entire enrollment. So I thought this would be a great piece to have on the front page. And then community numbers. This is something we've just started on, but you know, what numbers might you need that are basic community information from the city, emergency numbers, our hospitals, you know, all of our schools, college, organizations, etc. Just an easy, quick access to those numbers. Essentially, these window shades are used for the current resident. Someone that may get on the internet in the morning, find out what's the weather, what's the portal, etc. On for a minute or so, off they go. Right now, my 2 11-year-olds have been using it for the school lunches and weather. So they're on it every morning, boom, they get their information, they know what's going on, off they go. And so they've been a little bit of a dictator of what some of the things are on this. Now these pieces are going to have a statistics analysis behind them. Basically, how much is it being used? If something isn't being used very much, we'll pull it off, put something new there. If something's being used quite often, we'll make it more of a marquee item. Along with that, there's some other pieces on the home page, which is what you're looking at. Along with the home page, we have 9 other subsequent pages, which is a Welcome to Marshall page, our housing page, which is our EDA housing, employment, business and industry, community services, park and rec, arts and culture, health and fitness, and economic development. But those 9 are also these nine logos that you're seeing here that are scanning through the screen. So as a Welcome to Marshall page, there's the icon for that piece. And then we have our housing piece. So I'll just click on our Welcome to Marshall page. As you go onto there, just gives a little bit of information about Marshall. And then some really quick links. Our city website, Lyon County, and the state website. And then just some basic demographic information about our city. And it's the same thing for all these, just take like community services. Now those are all the links that we've posted within community services. And I'll go on to that one page and I'll move on. So just a little bit of information about community services. And then the links within that page. These are links that go right directly to our current site, just like Driver's Ed. You want to know about Driver's Ed, boom, you're going to go right to our city current page and you'll get to the information about Driver's Ed. So just really quick access to something you're looking for.
Mark, on business and industry, is that linked to the chambers?
No, it is not. That is just, I'll show you what that is. It's really about the general public business and industry. What's going on in Marshall as far as our business and industry, you know, what are some of our employers. They go into the MidPro website, which is our inventory of industrial land available, and then the Job Z link. So those are nine areas within our city, and as you can see, many links attached to that, and I can let you peruse the site on your own time. The next piece, as I said, community walk. Oh, I pushed that, excuse me. Community walk. This is a new piece for our city. This is essentially someone that's from the outside saying, you know, what does the city have to offer? This has 491 entries. So I just got one piece here. This is just the shopping entities within Marshall. On the left side here, they're in alphabetical order. And if you're just looking for some information on one of our businesses, it's all there. And if you're looking at something like a restaurant, there's the restaurants that we have in town. And let me see if I can get one really quickly here. The Landmark Bistro. Double click there, then it goes to the information about the bistro. It'll give its address, its phone number, etc., etc. And then if you want to, which I'm not going to do right now, you can click on and go right to their website. Along there's some pieces that we are not using yet. Groups, we can set up groups. City Council can have its own group, put information there. The EDA can have a group. Bikers, you know, a bikers group can be on there. The community calendar, which I talked about earlier, which I'll go into further. Our CVB has its link on the top line of the menu page. Right now, what's really hot is their hunting page. That's been updated, so there's really quick information for hunting in the area. So closing some of these down. And then, once again, local news very quickly. Document retrieval, our city hall and our county has laser-free access, and we'll be having our documents available there too, for both city employees and also for public information that we're willing to share. Along the left side here is our quick and easy links to sites that we have, like our city website, Marshall Public Schools site, so you just boom, right there, you're right to the public school site.
Mark,
What is
what
it?
building is that?
This one right here?
Yeah.
US Bank. US Bank Corp. That was an aerial picture taken by Railco for us. On this back there.
Larry, you had a question?
We know. I asked Jenny, she asked for it.
Going a little further, just more links that we have established in here. Like I said, we got the city, Marshall Public Schools, got the private schools in here, our colleges, universities, chamber, their websites in there, our healthcare entities, utilities, et cetera, all the way down to organizations. This is where we started so far. I mean, there may be more direct links, but really trying to keep it public information, something that is not for profit, not for a business, but if you're looking for public information, these are the really quick links there. And what you're looking at here is a five-faceted calendar. And I pushed that too quickly, but essentially what we're looking at doing is a calendar that talks about all that is going on in Marshall, like I said, from the schools to the college to organizations, volunteer pieces, community services. To put all that on there would be absolutely impossible to navigate through. So we're in the process now of refining what that information would be. Just like we take like Marshall Schools. There's the Marshall School information for the month. There's what's going on for the Marshall Schools for the week. And then here's what's going on in Marshall Schools for today for the varsity. Those 4 things.
Does that require any data entry onto that part?
It does not. Our webmaster, Webtomics, is working with Tricia at the school, and this is a direct feed. It's a computer program that just automatically pulls the information down. Once we've done that upfront work, it's really no hands-on data entry. Community services calendar is done by the same programmer, so it's the same process. It's just a matter of linking the appropriate information to the right spot. We're working also with our other entities to make sure that we have all their information on there. As you can see, there's a lot of categories, junior high, et cetera, et cetera. This is not 100% complete yet because there's just so much work that needs to be done behind the scenes. But as you can see, when you look at a calendar about just the school information, there's quite a bit there. The goal is to have this easy to navigate for an individual within our community. To start here, local sports and rec would be that button. You go right to that information. Educational pieces, you go right to that button. Here, if you have all the boards and commissions, boom, all those calendar items would be up and operational. And then any arts and music pieces. So that's the goal when all the calendar is done. All that'll be segmented so you can easily go to where you want to go. Look at today, this week, this month, this year. So that is the bulk of the work that needs to be done for the website right now. And I'll tell you, it probably won't be 100% complete for another 3 months just because there's so much data. But I do believe we can get a very good start on it, and we're looking at being live on next Monday. So most of the school and community services and college information will be up. We'll see if we'll follow through that. One final piece on the website is a repository of thousands and thousands of hours of video. Right now, I'm not going to open these up because they do take a lot of time and a lot of space, but essentially, we had the girls up at state playing. That could be on tape that night, could be downloaded, and any parent who was unable to watch the game or go there and watch that video on our website. We have that capacity now. We have the hardware, we have the space, we have the speed in town. We just don't have the vehicle. How do we get there? We're going to use the portal as the vehicle to get to that information. As time goes on, we'll get more and more creative. Our council meetings can be on there. school board meetings can be on there, any and all meetings could be on there that are taped, an easy way for our residents to get access to them.
So could that, once we have the technology, let's use the school district or school board where they have the technology installed, could that, their board meetings be a live streaming view through this portal?
That is an option that we have, but just the amount of effort it would take to make that live would be more than it'd be worth at that time, but it could be immediately downloaded to be brought up and watched right after it ended. But to have it live streaming, it needs someone hands-on to take care of that, or once you have it taped, you could be off-site, download it and be ready immediately.
Okay.
You know, and really, I see that as the most exciting piece as far as to market our community. Someone from the outside could be watching, say, wow, the city of Marshall has all this about their community, you know, as far as the videos to watch. You know, I think of an introduction by you, Mayor, on there, talk about our city, and other testimonials from those who have went to our schools, from those who have graduated, went on to colleges, et cetera, et cetera. We really want to use that as a marketing piece. I would say probably mostly within our EDA part, but also on the front page, this is testimonials about our city. This website will be in a constant state of flux. We're going to be watching the statistics and seeing where people are going, how it's being used, the calls we get, and then make changes, I would say, probably every 6 months to make sure that it's new and fresh.
No, Mark, it goes live Monday, you said.
Yes.
What is the URL?
It's going to be discovermarshall.com. Right now, it's discovermarshall.com/portal, because this is not live on the web yet. It is on our webmaster's computer, and that's where we're feeding it from right now. So if you actually did a search for discovermarshall.com, you won't find it. Monday is going live. So the next piece, just that you have some background data with the memo about the portal and the maintenance agreement that we have with Webtomics. The most important piece of this website is the fact that we have a maintenance contract to keep it fresh and new weekly. We have 14 hours of service every week to make sure all the information is updated, the calendar is accurate, changing of any pictures or any data that we need done. So every single week this will be a new website. It may be a whole new redo every 3 months, you know, by quarter, so we have instead of a nice summary picture, you know, during the wintertime it's a wintry picture that matches the time. Those are other things that they will be doing. Along with that, we do have 5 other partners that we're looking at. First of all, looking at the school district, with MU and the county, and we have 2 other partners, which would be the CVB and the Chamber of Commerce. Those would be the 6 partners that would share with us the maintenance to make sure their websites are also updated. And you know, as you saw, as we navigate right to those sites, we want to have them the same look, the same appearance, and the same ease of navigation as this site does. But I guess I'm open for questions.
Questions for Mark?
Along with that, the city website still will remain and exist. We'll be able to link into it. We will get certain homepage services through the maintenance agreement too, where we'll be freshening up this homepage. Along with that, staff throughout, I think, this upcoming year will be reevaluating the way that this is set up, changing some of that, what content is in there now, what content the people or the different customers that might go to that site, what might they want that's not in there. And a lot of those discussions are going on too, and leading in that this has helped kind of stimulate a discussion related to this as well. So this is kind of more city organization only, this website. We're also looking at this. Not proposing any, it would all be internal costs, you know, for this upcoming year anyway, to make changes to that.
Okay. Other questions? That looks very good. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item 7 is a presentation of the Safe Routes to School grant application. Ben, you're going to start on this?
Oh, actually I can. I've got Shane along to do this. This is a grant that we proposed a year ago and we declined, and now we're resubmitting the grant with some basic upgrades to some recommendations that we got back from the grant process, right, Shane?
Just to give you the refresh your memory on the background. The Safe Routes to School program is a fund program that's supported by the Federal Surface Transportation Act, and it has 3 goals. The first goal is to enable and encourage children to, including those with disabilities, to walk or bicycle to school. Number 2, to make bicycling and walking to school safer and more appealing for transportation alternative for the students, and encouraging a healthy and active lifestyle from an early age. The third goal is to facilitate the planning and development and implementation of projects and activities for walking to school. So we, Sheila, Dubs, and I have been working with the Community Services Department as the sponsor for an application for the Safe Routes to School funding. Our current application is a rework of 2 previous applications, and primarily on this application we're asking for $165,000 of grant funding. This funding is funded at 100% with no local match required. However, given the scope of our project, we may actually exceed our grant request depending on our bids and the overall scope of the project when we're done. With that said, I would also propose that this project be attached either entirely or in part with a project that we have already scheduled along Legion Field Park. We're going to improve the utilities and the road surface on Legion Field Park, and that is a primary segment of the Safe Routes to School application that we're putting together. Essentially, we want to connect the Parkway subdivisions to the Westside Elementary School, and there's several segments of sidewalk that are lacking to connect that neighborhood to the Westside School. Then the other part of our Safe Routes to School application that we want to focus on is to improve the safety at 3 intersection locations, primarily right at either end of the block that Westside Elementary is on, the intersection of 4th Street and West College Drive, the intersection of 4th Street and Country Club Drive. Both of those currently have a crossing guard at them, but we feel that there could be some enhancements, signage or different crosswalk type work that we can do there. And the other section that I think is probably a little bit more important is just east of the 4th Street and West College Drive is the intersection where West College Drive, Country Club, and 2nd Street all come together right at the crosswalk with the stoplight. And I think that we could probably do some more enhancements there to probably encourage kids to cross there a little more safely. So that's a quick summary of our proposed project, and this is just for informational only. We'll find out if we get this grant in spring of 2009, and what we'd like to do is tie this grant application directly into a project, like I said, that we have planned for Legion Field Road. Just to kind of summarize, that this project is also supported by Marshall Community Services, the Advisory Board, Marshall YMCA, Pioneering the Healthier Marshall Coalition, the Marshall Safety Coalition, and the school district. And we hope to come through for all these partners with this grant application and make a positive impact on our safe routes for our children. Are there any questions? I can answer some.
Thank you, Shane. Questions? Just one question. In the previous applications, the Department of Transportation has provided some feedback on, and that feedback has been incorporated into this application?
Yes, actually, one of the primary pieces that we're trying to get worked out is, along with Legion Field road with the railroad crossing, we want to enhance the pedestrian crossing there as well. Right now, there is no pedestrian crossing at the railroad tracks, so we want to work those details out. And we've kind of dropped the connectivity to the middle school to some extent because that was kind of cloudy in our previous application, and just want to focus on Parkside or the Parkway addition to West Side Elementary, and then those intersections that I mentioned. So.
Thank you. Any other questions for Shane? If not, thank you for your work on this. That looks like an excellent application. Is there any action that would be helpful on this?
My understanding, thank you, Your Honor, members of council, my understanding was there is no council resolution or support or anything required with the application, but we felt it was appropriate to let you know that we were going to be submitting it. Is that an accurate statement, Shane?
Yes, actually the Public Works Department has to endorse the project, and we'll include a letter signed by Glenn with our packet, and then we also need a concurrence letter from MnDOT, which I have the contact made with the MnDOT personnel to get that back from them as well for the packet. So those are really the two key pieces that we need from the city and local governments.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Agenda item number 8, consider the final payment application with Mears Electric for the Matt Bus Garage project. We have the information before us. Glenn, anything to add to that?
Nothing to add. If you have any questions, I'd certainly take them.
Any questions?
Yes, I have, go ahead.
Mike?
Okay. What's account 8044193? I mean, that doesn't tell me diddly. What account is this?
And that's a good question. We put that information on there specifically for accounting because a lot of times when these used to come forward, there wasn't that number there. We've added that in the last year or two, and that account is the account that Tom makes the payments out for the Matt Bus Garage.
Well,
Okay.
I was just curious on
So
how did we have the
if
extra
there's a name
funds?
for that, we could include that in future, you know, to identify what account that is.
Is it just a special?
It wasn't mere contingencies, that's, I know that, Mike.
Was it a special? We got the finance director here. Is that a project fund?
It's an agency fund, and the 5 middle numbers basically indicate that it's transit.
I know, you know that, we don't. But the thing is, you know, funds are available to cover this. Well, yeah, if it's the contingency account, I'm sure there's funds to cover it. How did the extra funds mysteriously show up in this account?
No, they're authorized for X number of dollars, and if you remember at the beginning, we had actually a negative change order. And so there was a maximum amount that was participating by the state for the project, plus there was an addition for both the county and the city by previous action. And if you look at not only this one, but a previous one that we have approved, I don't think we've come up to the amount that's already been authorized, have we?
No.
Tom?
No.
So,
Well, I don't know how the rest of the people feel, but an account number does nothing to me. If we had just an abbreviated name or something.
We will do that in the future. I think we're trying to add more transparency and information for the council to know when we are spending monies, where exactly it's coming from. So we'll add the titles, description.
we added that specifically for Tom's office previously, because he always came up to us the next day and said, where is this one coming out? So,
Glenn,
yeah, great.
Glenn, after this payment, there's $30,000 left on the balance. What's the hold off on finals? Are any finals coming up on this?
No, this is the final.
General contractor?
Yeah, the general contractor.
Has the work been done, or?
Okay. There's 3 separate contracts. One is the general contractor, one was the plumbing, one was the electrical work. The general contract has not been It has been completed. The final paperwork is on my desk without penalty. I've been in discussion with TSP. They're reviewing the liquidated damages portion, which will be less than the $30,000 remaining, but you won't see a recommendation for approval until that's been resolved by TSP and Marshall Area Transit. Everything before it comes to council, we check with Marshall Area Transit, specifically Danette Gary, on status of the project itself, their operation before we bring it to council. So
it's
you're right,
close then.
it's close. We have had that application in this office since September 9th, but the issue of liquidated damages has not yet been resolved, so that's why you don't have it. And that's why there's $30,000 outstanding with the general.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Make a motion to approve change order.
Second.
Motion by Charlie, seconded by Dan. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item number 9, consideration of the change order number 2. This is the final change order and the acknowledgement of the final payment application for the bituminous overlay project. So can you have the information? Glenn, anything to add?
Yes, this one resulted in a $636 increase due to actual tonnage of asphalt being placed on the job, of the $178,000 contract. So we tried to maximize what we had done. We would recommend it too.
Questions for Glenn? Motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Larry, second by Mike. Discussion. If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes.
One comment there too is you see the same note in this, the project number, the account number, and is that something you'd like to see, street reconstruction, just a line item attached to that? It's easily done, so.
Well, I guess I can tell by looking at this one pretty much what account. Some of them are, kind of out there la la land.
We'll probably just make that standard policy when we put the account number if we can get the. Thank you.
Okay, agenda item number 10, consider the change order, the final change order and the acknowledgement of final payment application for the bituminous chip seal project.
This is a similar situation in that there was a decrease in the amount based upon the actual amounts covered. We had considered doing an additional street area, but it was twice what this was, and we didn't want to go over the contract amount by $12,000, so we limited it to that. We'll have that next project on next year's agenda.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the change order.
Second.
Motion by Dan, seconded by Charlie. Discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Agenda item number 11, consider the agreement for the deferred assessment for project Y42 Club 59 additional improvement project. Glenn?
Thank you. We're a little bit surprised on the outcome of this, that when we went into the assessment procedure for this subdivision, we had 2 requests for service. And that's all of the lots essentially from here, all of these, all the way down to the south end. And in the end, we only got a request for a deferral of this vacant lot and this vacant lot. So all of the other property owners either would come in and pay their assessment, or it's going to be that assessed, and their intent is to hook up within a year or so. So that was a pleasing outcome of the project, that by golly, when it's there, we're going to take advantage of it. So we either met with or sent requests to every property owner indicating that they did have this potential to defer their assessments, and these are the 2 that we got back.
Okay. Any questions on the application for the deferred on these 2? If not, is there a motion for the agreements?
So moved.
Motion by Larry, seconded by Mike. Discussion? Just a comment, Glenn, on the status of that project?
And then this project to work underneath the lines that they just put in. So they waited until after we were done, and then, you know, just so happens that the weather turns wet the week before MMU comes in. Okay, so it made kind of a mess when they came in, and they were criticized a little bit for the mess that they made because it was wet conditions, but it was the proper thing to do, and they took a little bit of flack for doing it. And now we'll work with MMU for the cleanup and the continued, you know, pickup of some of the mess on the streets. This week, we'll look at it again. It's soft, the crossings are soft, it got wet. So we'll work with the property owners and MMU and the contractor to make sure that things are cleaned up. Now, the contractor does have to come in and finish a couple of concrete aprons. He has to do some graveling in the spring, but we'll be working with both the contractor and MMU to make sure that it's winter passable and in the spring then for final cleanup.
Any other questions or discussion on that motion? Not call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. Agenda item number 12, consideration of the amendment to the grant of easement on the city sale of property to KHC, Kim Christensen. Dennis, do you have this?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mayor and Council. In the process of agreeing to the sale of the 60-foot parcel in front of the Christensen business property, we're all ready to close, and then a review of the abstract indicated that basically it's a blanket easement over the entire 60-foot parcel. At the request of Mr. Christensen's attorney, they requested that the city limit its easement basically to the south 15 feet and the west 15 feet of that. And so this is a proposal, since the city still owns it, the city would propose to limit the scope and limit the geographic stretch of that easement. So there's a nice map in your packet. Glenn's department has put together showing basically at 60 feet in front of the property, we would retain an easement on the west 15 feet and the south 15 feet for general utility purposes, if any are necessary. You'll see right now, if you look at that, there's an overhead power line going above that, right adjacent to the property, but that would, allow access if we needed to do any work on those power lines or any other public utilities that might go in there. So I guess it would be a recommendation to facilitate the sale, that the city authorize the amendment to that easement. If that's approved, then we would move quickly to the closing. We're pretty much ready to go.
Is there any questions on this recommendation?
No, I have a question. We will have no need to have easements in there, Glenn?
Not on the remainder of the 60 feet.
Yeah. I would move approval then.
Second.
Motion by Larry, seconded by Charlie for approval of the amendment to the grant of easement. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. At this time, I'll call for a 5-minute recess. Agenda item we'll reconvene the meeting at this time. We are on agenda item number 13. This is an update of the sale of city property to Flint Hills Resources LLC. This is an information item only. Dennis.
Right, thank you, Mayor and Council. The city has concluded its sale already to Flint Hills Resources, but between the closing of the sale and the plat approval, City Marshal's name still appeared on the plat. You've approved the plat. However, we really don't have anything to sign off on the platting of the property. So we have directed the surveyor who prepared the plat to change the name, making sure that Flint Hills Resources signs off on that plat. So just to bring it to your attention, if you would recall approving the plat with the City Marshal's name and then suddenly the recorded plat has Flint Hills Resources, we're just letting you know that change has occurred. And just by way of full disclosure and transparency, that's what's happened.
Okay. So, any questions on this? If not, move on to agenda item number 14, the Council Member Commission Board Liaison reports. The Economic Development Authority, you had the presentation on the portal. At their meeting last week, they also had a informational presentation about the Midwest aviation issue with Penner's Aviation. Fire Relief and Regional Development Commission have not met since our last meeting. Mike?
Yes, the Airport Commission did meet this last week. You do not have the minutes yet. I believe I mentioned something about it, the Sovereign Airline proposal. That's it.
Okay, Larry?
Marsh Community Services met last Wednesday. Basically, they're going into their full winter schedule, and it looks like pretty much all the recreational activities are full. Adult Community Center met last week. Barb is looking to get the leases signed for this upcoming year. And that's it.
Jenny?
The library board met last week at the Cottonwood Library, where we were updated that the Cottonwood Library is in discussions with the City of Library about a new facility that the city will be building, and they want to make room to have the library at the same site. Very preliminary discussion, nothing. Just let us know kind of what's on the horizon for that place over there. We also approved a strategic plan for the Marsh & Land Common Library. That's it.
Okay. Mike?
Utilities meets on Wednesday. You sat through part of it. We had a special joint meeting on the hospital board this evening, and I had to depart early the rest of the meeting to attend this one, so let's look for the minutes next meeting.
And Dan?
EDA met, like you said, and other than that, I had none.
And Charlie?
Cable Commission met. We talked a little bit about some different types of programming that people would like to do. There's some people interested in doing a cooking program that hopefully will come about being on the cable channel. And we also, when they talked about the possibility of going into the mercantile building for Schwann's, they were talking about a cable that would come across from utilities. There's some information that came forward from one of the people at Schwann's that said that there's a cable already stubbed into the alley there. So you wouldn't have to go all the way to the utilities. You could connect onto that probably. But that was some of the directions I had directed to get a hold of Harry and let Harry know where that's at. So.
Yeah, I thought Harry brought that up at the staff meeting, that he's aware of that cable location in close proximity already.
Already, yeah, so we don't have to haul it all the way over there and cost a lot of extra money. We don't need that spent. So, then the Insurance Advisory Board, our commission met, and we didn't gain a conclusion to the stuff we need to all get concluded, so we'll have another meeting before it comes forward for the council.
We'll move on then to staff reports. Ben?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the City Council, I have just a couple of bullet points there that I included. I have a list of others that I'll go through verbally. Included in your packet is a letter that went out related to our copier. Inevitably, try and do the right thing and get the information out. We presented last meeting that we were going to have a copier printer scanner in for your consideration this week. However, after doing some double checking and talking about it, one of our local vendors, they were originally sent out by email to them, and it was slightly wrong or something, and so one of the local vendors didn't get a chance to bid. And we know how important it is to be fair and give everybody an equal shot. And because the previous quotations, we don't have to get formal bids, but quotations were presented to the council, they're really public at that point, so we get sensitive about, we can't just let this other person give their proposal, because they might have seen the quotes that the others had presented previously. So we felt the only real fair way to handle this issue was to give everybody another shot to either sharpen their pencils if they wanted to, or resubmit their quotes, including the vendor, the local vendor that was that didn't get an opportunity the last time. The one that Herbalife told us that they were not interested in giving a proposal, we sent it to them again anyway, just so that they had the opportunity. We included some of those letters in here for your information. So I'm hoping to bring something back next meeting again, and there could be issues that come up again, but hopefully not. I want to make you aware of that. And since it was an action item, is there any questions about procedurally how to deal with this?
If we continue to drag this out, we can get it in the 09 budget.
We talked about that too, but we wanted to proceed anyway.
I guess my only problem is that it doesn't say, and I realize that skipping a vendor is something that should not happen. But once the information from everyone else has become public information, you're asking them to rebid. That's really not fair to those that did do what we ask of them.
We debated that issue too.
Is it fair for the person that got excluded? They got excluded?
Well, now we got 4 of them that are getting picked on instead of 1, yes.
We were back and forth on the same issue about what's the best way to handle it.
If I were one of the suppliers, I had already submitted it, I know what I'd tell you to do with your second request.
Michael, you're in a public meeting.
Okay. So anyway, that's the way we're proceeding with that at this time. I think I indicated before, we do have pay equity reporting that is due at the end of January, and we've received official notice from the state. We knew in advance, so we've been preparing for it at the staff level, and we're inputting the data in order to run the numbers to see whether we're in compliance or not, but more information to come in that in the future. But I want to make you aware of it since it is a deadline that we will be working on. Along with that, we have a budgetary meeting next Tuesday at 5:00 p.m. You will get a reprinted budget with a balanced budget. At that time, we will have reductions in our operating and capital costs to present to the council. You will be presented some, I guess, options. You've seen what the total requests were, but on the items that we potentially remove, we'll be giving you certain options to, if you feel that one of the items that might have been removed you want back in, or even things that are submitted, we'll be looking for feedback on it. Obviously, we're probably, I would say, from a typical year, probably a couple of weeks at least behind the 8-ball year on it, but I'm feeling pretty good that basically at that meeting we'll have some discussion, get some feedback from the council, prepare our changes for the truth and taxation hearings that will be coming up in January, and the staff will be preparing further summary data for those hearings. We'll go through with the truth and taxation hearings there in December to get feedback. However, part of the purpose of a truth and taxation hearing is to provide public input, feedback on the budget. So even though the summary presentation budget data that goes into those hearings, we can still make changes. And so since we are a little bit behind, I would anticipate, that the council would have an opportunity after next Tuesday that we'll have a little bit of further discussion to make changes on the final budget and capital request. So that you aren't forced to make final decisions in one meeting. So certainly we're looking at December to get that finalized up. We'd be getting on the fast track here, I guess, to get our budget in line with where we're at for 2009. We will also have some of our final presentations presented that evening as well. Primarily items like our utility funds that are not driven by the tax levy, but they need to be part of our final budget presentations as well. Before I move on, is there any questions or direction on that issue or questions? A couple of the other items, and this kind of falls under pending items, but the Personnel Committee staff has been reviewing the changes. I don't know that there's been a lot of changes from the last meeting with the council members who are on that committee, but staff is currently implementing some amendments based on the feedback we got at the Personnel Committee. We'll be bringing it back for their final review before we send it to the employees for their final review of the draft that we have. So that continues to move forward to try and get that wrapped up as soon as possible. We have, our safety committee has been actively meeting and looking at improvements to our program. They've kind of been re-energized, and there are some compliance issues with OSHA that we'll be bringing back to the council in the near future. One of them primarily is the adoption of our AWARE manual that needs to get implemented as well to meet some of those requirements. But that group is taking a lot of action, making some positive movement on that as well. The technology committee that I helped establish, an internal staff committee, is continuing to meet. This upcoming week, we'll be doing the vision, goals, and objectives, and kind of identifying some priorities. It's basically to open communications with staff on some different opportunities and technology improvements going forward. The item, one of the items brought up related to the employee performance review that was raised. I've had contact with Councilmember Sano and had some preliminary discussions with him. I'm working on kind of following up with that, and probably will be having some updates for you on that coming up in the future. We don't have anything specifically tonight for you to present on. Mr. Councilmember Sano is comfortable with that. I am meeting with Councilmember Odenheimer before he leaves on his vacation to get feedback on budget, and I'll probably talk to him a little bit about it as well, since he was the other person who indicated some interest in that issue at the last work session that we had. One of the items I talked about a little bit for you to maybe be thinking about or aware that I'm putting some thought into is kind of a planning session for the upcoming year, looking at city projects for 2009. Obviously, with the budget, we know what some of the priorities are going to be or things that we're working on. But there's always other things that we work on to improve or looking long-term strategically that might not mean we're spending money, but spending staff time and energies on. So I want to be able to spend some time for the council to sit down and go through that. I understand that you've done that some in the past, and we'll probably be looking at something similar to that, but we're kind of internally discussing about the best way to approach that. I think another piece to that we'll be talking about is internal council relationships and how we can facilitate that in a positive manner and how it relates to moving projects forward or not, as well as council staff relationships, maybe something else that we get talked about. So if you have any thoughts on that, let me know, but it's something I'm preparing probably for after the first of the year, after we get the budget behind us, probably January, February, to sit down and have something done there. It may involve having some type of independent facilitator to help with some of those discussions related to that. More details to come, but if you have any specific questions about that, you can talk to me outside the meeting. This Friday from 10 to 2 p.m., you should have received an email. Mark your calendar, and I'm not sure, I haven't, with just how hectic things are, I haven't been able to confirm with Mark Hansen, but you should be getting a more formal agenda if you haven't already on a scheduled economic development summit is what it's being called. Now, historically, it's been kind of led by maybe the Chamber Industrial Development Committee or maybe the Marshall Industries Foundation. They are involved in this, but what it primarily is an opportunity to present some of the opportunities or direction, I guess, with the different development organizations, including the council, on projects that are upcoming that we see related to economic development that are critical, maybe property-specific policy discussions for the upcoming year. Not necessarily on all of the cases that this is where we're headed, but looking for feedback. It'll include discussions on some of the property that we own, and ultimately the council has the decision-making authority on that, but with the Economic Development Authority being kind of the lead economic development agency within the city operations, I'd like to kind of have them take the lead role in reviewing those under the guidance of the council and bringing back recommendations. Things such as the properties that we own, like the industrial park property that the city had acquired, how to phase that development, looking at Block 11, that property that's owned, middle school site, and then also kind of some of these emerging issues like the Amateur Sports Commission and how different groups might be taking a look at those things. The EDA is kind of serving as the lead host. Mark Hansen has taken a lead role in trying to organize and schedule that tour. Glenn Olson will assist in some of the engineering, since a lot of it's infrastructure related, having that. But those groups that I previously mentioned, as well as the county board, will be invited to that meeting. So I hope that you will be able to attend and present, even if you can't make the entire time, maybe you can make the bus tour or maybe make the discussion afterwards. So I encourage you to try and attend that. Although it's not open, although we don't necessarily have seats open to the public for it, we have made space for the press to be available. If maybe somebody else wanted to slide in there, we may be able to make the opportunity. But we are posting the meeting as an open meeting for the different groups that are involved as well. We are kind of moving things a little bit operationally in a little bit different direction, with the EDA taking on a more active role, as I had previously discussed, with industrial and commercial development activities with the city, with the MIF and Chamber kind of taking direction in some ways from the EDA and getting more of an advisory capacity. So those will be briefly touched on at that meeting as well. So encourage you to attend that upcoming summit this Friday. The previous, let's see here, this morning we did receive the trail plan that has been reviewed. That's will be part of the amendment to our comp plan. Just came in our office this morning, and so Sheila just placed one on my desk, but we'll be having some discussions about how to present that plan that has been completed from the University of Minnesota, and whether we get community service and council together at a work session, or whether we do them separately. We'll be kind of having those discussions about the next steps. One, let you know that it has been received, and we'll be kind of putting together how we present that going forward and finding a time for that to occur. As was briefly touched on in the past, I'm not prepared necessarily to comment directly about the Petters Aviation situation, but obviously we've been tracking it very closely as it relates to our FBO services, as well as the potential financing request that's being funneled through the Economic Development Authority. Potentially there will be a loan review through our CRIF fund, through the EDA, where they would potentially be a partner in a loan package for Petters for some of the needs that they have for their, not Petters, excuse me, the local Midwest Aviation, is that the right term? We're not financing Petters anymore. It's our local group. But it's on review through the EDA. I guess it's currently being reviewed by the Marshall Industries Foundation, who has kind of served as a pre-loan group that brings a recommendation to the EDA. That's one of the things that we're working to clarify going forward, but that's how it's been done historically, so we're just following that procedure for right now. And they're currently taking a look at that application. I'm not going to give you a lot of details tonight, but it could be coming up quickly to the council and through the EDA, so I want you to be at least aware that it is now that he has purchased the business back. We're in a situation where we can actually take that review under seriously, whereas previously it was kind of up in the air with the bankruptcy holding. The city assessor's position when I presented the budget request last meeting, I gave you a little bit of an indication that I was reviewing some personnel matters related to that. I'm not sure that I don't believe I really need the council's authority to do this, but wanted to give you a heads up that I have reviewed the mileage contribution for that position. It was previously paid for where they get $250 of mileage allowance in the past in that position, and there are other positions that receive that. There is no direct city car available, and it's probably one of the positions that requires the most travel locally out of any position of the city. So I am recommending to move forward with identifying that position as an eligible position for the reimbursement. And at the next meeting in December, I would be running it through the bills on a directive, accounts payable directive, to run that through to make it retroactive to when the start date was for that position. So I'm moving forward in that direction. I'm not sure how it might have been handled in the past, but I thought I should at least make you aware of that in case you have any objections, or so that you can be ready for that. It will come through your bills next meeting. The Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities has a conference this week, a regional conference in Wilmer on Thursday and Friday. Tentatively right now, I am only looking at attending on Thursday. I am serving on the assisting on the economic development portion of the board, and have provided some feedback to them. However, and I am planning to attend the conference on that day at this point. It could change depending on my work schedule. It's kind of a heavy week with finalizing budgetary items and others, so there is a chance I might be backing out of it, but it would be good to try and attend that. But I want to make you aware that I might be out that day. With that, the only thing, that concludes my report, although I did want to make sure that Glenn had the opportunity to give an update on the street projects, even though we touched on it briefly, because he was available last week and it was urgent. Since we had a scheduled public meeting, I thought it was a good opportunity for him to give an update on the street projects, the reconstructions that were underway for this year too, so that kind of officially for the public to get word on the status of that as well.
Thank you, Ben. This will be a rerun of what you've probably already heard, but Southview, the asphalt got placed up to the final lift. They're continuing to work on concrete work. on Southview, but there will be no more asphalt paving until next year. West Redwood Street, if they would have had the gravel ready, we would have paved that, but the gravel is too soft. The decision was made by the contractor that he didn't want to try to dry that material back and recompact it, and opted to fill that section with gravel to the gutter line. And we'll be continuing to work on the concrete work, driveways and sidewalks in that area as well before winter. Windstar Street project, we gave the notice to proceed after we got all the information to Dennis for approvals. The contractor did indicate that he wanted to start on water and sewer, but because of the conditions on the site in the last week, it's been a little muddy, and he's postponing that work, so he may want to proceed with some excavation work, some relocation of some of the excess 30,000 yards of material we have on the project, and excavation in the ponding area. To do that, we'll need to finalize our agreement with Mr. Carr on the easement for the city to utilize that pond that is in the design. That won't be a problem getting that, but the demolition project is proceeding on the junior high project. They were pulled off of that for a week to do other excavations and other contract obligations, and so you didn't see a lot of demolition work going on, at least late in the week last week. That will resume and continue. The process is that it's still going to be demoed yet this fall. Any questions?
Questions?
I have some more updates specifically with the airport. We have our group that used to meet at Macoa coming here on Friday from noon to 2. The FAA and MnDOT will be here at the airport for Mike's benefit. We will hope that you can make it to that.
What time?
At noon.
Friday?
On Friday. And please RSVP. I know we're all sent a notice for that meeting. We'll be reviewing the CIP and the funding. And from the one letter that we got that was very confusing, we understood what it meant, but it was very confusing, and what monies are available during which year, and which monies go away if you don't use it by this date, and the status of the $150,000 annual apportionment to the city for our from the feds. We'll be discussing those types of things, as well as the bridge construction on the extension of Madrid Street and the access to the southeast portion of the airport. Those are the major discussion items that will get clarification for federal and state funding. We also had discussions with Sovereign Air for scheduled air service. It's a minority-owned, Native American-owned company that gave a proposal for essential air service, EAS, from Brookings to Minneapolis, directly into the Minneapolis terminal. I believe there's another bidder, Great Lakes Air, I believe is also giving a proposal to Brookings, and we'll see what happens with those proposals. Once that's done, we'll see if scheduled air service is a possibility for Marshall, because under EAS you can make one scheduled stop on that route, of which we're kind of in the way between Brookings and Minneapolis. I've also provided the Sovereign Air with a copy of the proposal that we were working on with Midwest Aviation for scheduled air service for Marshall, which includes the times of the day for each of the 7 days of the week that we had requested scheduled air service. So we just provide that information in case something came forward that did work out, that they were aware that this service was being moved.
I would have to believe, Glenn, based on what was said, that the Airport Commission, that they were going to do the essential air service with a number like 5 passengers per load. And when when they found out Marshall could probably come up with better than 10 to supplement that, they seem to become very interested.
It's on the way in. They did receive a copy of the Mead and Hunt study be provided to their financial reviewers, just to see what was in that study that we did. It's one of those things where stranger things have happened, and we want to make sure that that opportunity would exist for this community if in fact it was feasible, and also both Schwann's Aviation and Midwest Aviation were represented at the meeting, provided input. Both of them, I think, were very interested in the presentation after it was given. The representative that gave the information, Bob Carnes, gave some examples that are located out in Belcourt, North Dakota, and gave some specific examples from Devil's Lake system, which I was familiar with, that he didn't know I was familiar with. But all of the information he gave was correct of that system. So that was a plus for our discussion.
Well, and the other big part of it is because it's essential air service into the main terminal, security and everything would be done locally at our airport, the scanners and all that, so that people could fly in, get off on the gate, go to another gate without going through security again, which I've always felt would be an important part of service from Marshall, is the ability to be able to do that.
I did check with the airport manager in Brookings. We discussed the possibilities, the probabilities, the issues that the city would have to comply with certification of its airport and system. TSA would be provided by the federal government, but the local screening would be done by the service. So that was always included in the contract that we had proposed with both Northwest Airlines and Midwest Aviation. So those are the kinds of things that we would have to be certified in. The fire protection issues would need to be provided prior to them doing a startup. We've got that in our budget for 2009 to get them in line in time. There are 3 or 4 facilities in the United States that do the training regularly. The one that we would attend in Duluth is given once or twice a year. But so those are the kinds of things that we're considering. We talked about prices. We asked about the ticket prices. And they said, well, they wouldn't be considering generally anything over the $99 one-way fare. That is kind of a given here. You know, you could certainly have $168, $180 one-way fares for the business traveler who had to get there by airplane. But for the general population, we thought, you know, that $99 ticket price would be the going rate for utilizing the facility. So we didn't suggest that. They brought that up on their own. It could even be less, but I would compromise. We did bring up our small cities airport grant that's available. So we have to have a contract in place by the end of January with service by April 1st. We just put that out there. That's what the agreement reads. We give them a copy of those agreements. We gave them a copy of what is eligible, advertising, promotion, and ticket subsidies. So, and it's only available for 1 year, from April 1st to March 31st of 2010. Okay. So the opportunity still exists. We're not going to turn it down.
Thank you, Glenn. We'll move on then to council member individual item. Jenny, you have
Nothing.
Larry?
Nothing.
Charlie?
No.
Dan? Mike?
Yes, one item, I would like Glenn and Dennis to update us on the wastewater liner. And how are we going to get by without it for the winter?
I'll turn that one over to Dennis for now.
Okay. I left my office at 4 o'clock to go to the hospital meeting. At about 3:55, I thought we had it resolved. there is Glenn has negotiated agreement, that agreement has been put in writing. The agreement had one change requested from shattered, the material shattered. One person wouldn't sign with the word shattered, he wanted the statement the material failed. So we changed the word shattered to failed. We got what we thought were all the necessary signatures, and now one of the people said they won't sign with the word failed, they want the word shattered. But as of about 5 o'clock maybe, another email came in and said they would accept it with the word failed. So I think we have the makings of an agreement that has been signed by the contractor, the installer, the material provider, the engineer. So I think we've got an agreement in place. Now, the bigger question is, can the repair work be done yet this fall? I know that the outlet pipe work has been done already, so.
Yes, it can be done. And if, in fact, that agreement wouldn't have gotten taken care of today or tomorrow morning, the recommendation would be to forget it and hire somebody else to come in and do it. Because that's as far as it goes. So, as long as we're okay with it, to give them a notice to proceed, and everybody is okay with what we're doing, we're going to have at it. Because, yes, they can install it in these weather conditions. They can install it at 120 degrees above zero. They can install it at 0 degrees. They just have to know what they're doing when they do it.
My understanding from what you said earlier is that there's really no problem to get by without it this winter, but next spring, potentially, we could have some big problems.
Yes. Springtime is when we have the runoff, when we have the excess flows, when we need to store it, and without that capability, we would be potentially discharging directly to the river, just like you did before you have. And that's something we don't want to do, and the health department is aware of it, and BCA is aware of it. We want to get it done, and
so, yeah,
hopefully we can give them the notice to proceed tomorrow.
Very good.
Thank you.
Mike? No. Okay. Agenda item number 17, review of pending agenda items. Any questions, comments about the pending agenda items?
Well, thank you, Your Honor, members of the council. We wanted to give you one heads up, one substantial change, I guess, that Glenn and I have talked about related to the presentation of the wastewater utility fund report. The draft has been completed by Bolton & Mink, and Glenn and I have discussed the scheduling of a discussion with the City Council. It is our recommendation that we move forward with our budget as planned with the previous report that was done. And rather than to muddy the water by discussing the new report while we're going through this final review, we felt it was appropriate to do the presentation probably in a work session in February to give us time to draft a full recommendation, since it kind of looks at new projects and how we might pay for those projects. So that's kind of the direction we're going with it, and why you might have noticed that we made a change from this year presenting that report until next year. So that's the direction we're heading. Unless you have any concerns, Glenn could probably better answer any detailed questions about the report, but we did have that discussion together.
We do this update with Springstead, which is the financial side of it each year. And last year's showed that 4% regular increases. This report may adjust that because of our required treatments for our phosphates. And so rather than do that at this point in time, I agree with Ben that can be accomplished next year. It's not a critical item to implement for 2009.
Very good. Agenda item number 18.
Just one other thing, I'm sorry, since it was meetings to be scheduled to, it kind of relates. I want to give a heads up to the Ways and Means Committee. I know that the purchasing policy is a priority. It's given direction that they wanted something implemented by the first of the year. With my new transition, the budget's just been the priority, and some other things I've been working on. And so, frankly, I haven't made much progress on the purchasing policy, but I understand that we'd like to get that addressed. So the upcoming scheduling of the Ways and Means will primarily be related to fees. My thought would be is probably starting in December is when I would draft up the review for that purchasing policy, which means that instead of the first of the year, it might get pushed off a little later, but I kind of want to get that's the priority for me right now. I want to get that behind me before I spend time on policy. So that's what I'm doing, and wanted to give you a heads up so you know that I haven't forgot about it. That's just what I've been doing. And the legislative and ordinance has a list of things too, and some of those are in some of the division directors' hands, and so we'll check to see where they're at with things and schedule that meeting as well. That's all I have there.
Okay. Agenda item number 18 is a determination by the council to go into closed session pursuant to Minnesota statute related to the LELS police officer and AFSCME contract negotiations. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Second.
Motion by Dan, seconded by Mike to go into closed session for this purpose. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes.